For the Bucks, the Bucks game will be actually also the first in-season tournament game for the Knicks as well. So, like Geoff just alluded to, the Bucks are 1-1 at the time of us recording this. Dame had a crazy cold shooting game in the loss against the Hawks. The Hawks blitzed them in the first half. With Geoff's guy Jalen Johnson hitting 2 of 3 threes, which had my eyes wide open. But yeah,
is he really my guy now? Is that just what
he's your guy now? Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Your guy's Jalen Johnson. Everybody knows my guy's Lowry Markkanen, and we're just gonna follow them the course of the season.
I like your guy. I like your guy a little bit better than mine. I'm gonna be
honest. But yeah, I like. Yeah, I would just say I don't expect to see that kind of showing from Dame against the Knicks. I think Grimes is going to have to get into him and try to bother him as much as possible. But he seemed kind of passive in that game. I watched some of the highlights. I didn't watch the full thing, but he seemed kind of passive. So I expect him to come out gunning. And I would just love to hear your perspective on why you think the Knicks match up well with Milwaukee with this new look Bucks.
Because I think that we have answers for their two best players. I think Tibbs, I know the Knicks lose close games to Milwaukee a lot, but I think Tibbs is as suited as any coach in the league to build, except for maybe outside of Boston, because Boston has some sort of voodoo magic going on when they play Milwaukee. I think Tibbs is as well suited as any coach in the league to build a scheme to not stop Giannis, but slow him down. I think the Knicks always make his life kind of tough when they play him. He's not getting to the spots. And I think the Knicks have proven that they have multiple options to throw at Damian Lillard. Lillard's going to get his. He's going to hit ridiculous shots, but he loves shooting pull-up threes off of screens, and that requires exploiting bad screen navigators. He's not going to face any bad screen navigators. So he's not going to just walk into open pull-up threes, even with Mitchell Robinson in drop coverage. The thing that kind of scares me the most is, I don't know if you've noticed this or how much Milwaukee you watch. Brook Lopez is not swingy as swingy at all. He's a 36 to 40% three-point shooter who is just that almost every game. And that is kind of scary because one of the things we struggle the most with is stretch fives. And so if he is as consistent as he seemed, not only this season, but last season, he was great in the playoffs last year. I know Milwaukee, I know it's weird to say because they lost as a 1 seed to an 8 seed, but it wasn't Brook Lopez's fault. That's for sure. That kind of scares me, but I think that their lack of depth is going to be more troublesome than is being given credit for right now. I think that they're still figuring it out. It's early in the season, as we've seen, even with New York's continuity, even when you're just changing, trying to adjust, tweak the scheme that you're working on, there's early, problems. That's just going to happen. Well, the Bucks are trying to infuse a superstar into their team. So I don't think they're going to be operating at peak, skill or whatever they're. So yeah, I see the Knicks having a good shot in Milwaukee, and I think that's a game they can win.
So I think I like that description of Brook Lopez as not swingy. I've not heard that before, but basically suggesting that there's low variance in terms of his shooting performances from three.
Yeah, I need to remember that not everybody spent 15 years playing poker professionally, but when that's what you do, people ask how you're doing, you say you're on a downswing or an upswing. So
I see.
Swingy is just lingo, but yeah, I'm glad at least you picked up on it.
That's really helpful terminology, actually, because there should be a name for that, or there's something at least we refer to it as, because a guy for instance, Emmanuel Quickley, last year was very swingy. He would go through a 3-game stretch and he's shooting 70% from three, and then a 4-game stretch and he's shooting 15% from three. So
yeah, I'm very glad to see Quickley's gotten that out of his system. Definitely didn't shoot 1 for 12 from three the last 2 games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quickly, that's behind him now. We all know that. No, I think those are some good points. There's definitely going to be some adjustment, growing pains for the Bucks, and it's good to get them early, I think, as well. I think I do think they're going to make things difficult for Brunson, and honestly, something I've been thinking about is that I love Grimes in the starting lineup with Brunson. I think it's, he offsets Brunson's weaknesses on the defensive end, provides the spacing that they desperately need. But something that does bother me is that opponents are able to hide their like weaker or smaller defenders on him, and then put their like two guard or their wing defender on Brunson. And I would really love to see Grimes be more aggressive in those situations, like let's say against Atlanta. So in Atlanta, a couple of times he shot right over the top of Trey from three, a couple of times, and I was like, that's awesome. Pull up if Trey is on you, like you need to exploit him, like you have to, and it doesn't have to be by attacking him and taking it off the dribble and bringing him to the rim, but shoot over him. Like you can do it. You definitely can. He has a high release point. He's taller than Trey, longer than Trey. Like he should be able to do that. So I really sometimes I'm just concerned, and because of Brunson's obvious ability to get down into the paint and muscle smaller guards, Grimes is always going to have a solid matchup with a smaller player. Aside from a team like Boston, who basically doesn't have any defensive weaknesses at guard. But against most teams, he's going to. So, like, I would love to see him make guys like Trey and Dame work really hard. I don't know if he is at that stage in his development where he's going to be able to do that. So to me, I almost see this as a Quickly game against Milwaukee, because I think the Quickly and Brunson lineup can work on the defensive end. And I think on the offensive end, they need to make Dame have to think a lot. They need to make Dame work on that end and kind of take advantage of him, because I just think that Dame is going to score. And I agree with you. I think he does a lot of his damage on, against guys who are bad screen navigators. Guys going, I mean, even if they don't go under, if they go over and try to navigate the screen, if they're kind of like slow or get stuck or die, like you're dead, he's going to hit the three. So I agree with that. But
can I ask you a question about what you said about Brunson?
Yeah, of course.
Who are the Bucks putting on Brunson? Like that's one thing that nobody's talking about. The Bucks defense is now all like, I think it could be a rough RJ game because unless RJ shoots well, which is fine. Like I don't mean that as criticism of RJ. I just mean the Bucks have Giannis and Brook Lopez waiting at the rim. Like that's not good for RJ and the shots he likes to get to when he's most comfortable. But Jalen Brunson doesn't live at the rim. So who is stopping him from getting to the spots that he wants to get to in pick and roll? Like, why can't Jalen Brunson just have his breakout game of the season that we've been waiting on in that game?
That's a great point. I mean, I imagine it's going to be a lot of Connaughton. I imagine they will also put Middleton on him. Are those guys equipped to stop Brunson? I don't think so. But I think they can slow him down a little more than we might give them credit for. But yeah, if he gets
is there a different Connaughton that I don't know about, or are you talking about Pat Connaughton?
It's Pat Connaughton's decent defensively.
Pat Connaughton, the Brunson stopper. What is happening right now? I feel like you're doing a bit, but I can't tell. Like
Connaughton is solid defensively. He's 6.
Am I being racist right now? Is that what's happening right now? Am I just like assuming he's terrible at defense and like because
look up some of his metrics. I mean, we don't have the greatest, obviously, we don't have the greatest like defensive impact metrics around, but they're solid. They give you a sense of defensive impact, and Connaughton's not terrible. He's had some bad seasons defensively, but overall he's been okay. And just his size, like I don't think he's a good off-ball defender, and that's like part of the reason why his impact metrics aren't as high as they could be. But I think he's okay, and he has some size on Brunson. I think to me, most teams just want to put size on Brunson. And I do think we'll see a lot of Middleton on Brunson. He's getting up there, and he may not be able to keep up with him, but we're talking about 6'6" to 6'9" guys that are going to be guarding Brunson, and that tends to at least slow him down a little bit. I do think that you're probably right on balance. Like, I do think we could see the Brunson eruption game for sure. Especially if the Knicks get switches on, like you were mentioning, they were doing a lot of like screening with smalls, potentially guards and wings doing screening. So we see switches and Brunson gets a guy like Beasley on him or Lillard on him, like those guys, yeah, we're going to see a Brunson like 30-40 point game.
And
But
for,
yeah,
for full transparency, people, Connaughton actually graded out on EPM as a plus defender last year. So I guess I was being racist.
I don't know that it would be, if I'd consider that racism, but I would consider it a bias, to be fair. But yeah, I don't think Connaughton's a great defender, to be clear. I'm not saying like, yeah, all they got to do is throw Connaughton at him and that'll shut him down. Like he's gonna pull a Fred VanVleet on him and like shut off his water. Like I don't think it's gonna be like that, obviously, but I do think like they're gonna throw guys like Connaughton and Middleton at him. That's their only hope. What else can they do?
Dude, you said on the podcast we did with Schwinn for Strickland, you brought up Fred VanVleet's defense, and like I remembered that VanVleet graded out really well on like impact metrics last season. That's right? He was really good last season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me that like defense was part of the equation, because you just look at VanVleet and you're like, even more so than Quickly. Like, you know, like people look at Quickly and they're like, oh, he's too skinny, blah, blah, blah. But VanVleet just like looks smaller than he is. And it's like, oh, this guy can't possibly. I've watched every Rockets game this season, which like sounds like something they would do in like a third world country prison to torture people or something. But no, it's like I've watched I've watched every Rockets. VanVleet hasn't been good offensively at all, but his defense is so good. I can't believe I never picked up on that. Yeah, I can't believe it. He like can guard up. Like they had him.
He can guard up on ball. He is sick. Yeah.
They had him isolated on Andrew Wiggins in the mid post, and Wiggins couldn't move him off his spot. Couldn't get a good like they were doing the Mark Jackson thing. They were like, "Oh, Harrison Barnes, go! You've got a mismatch." But it wasn't a mismatch. It was
like no.
It was VanVleet was shutting him down.
6 foot fire hydrant Fred VanVleet, who is the only guy in the NBA that I've seen like just be like, "Yo, Brunson, you're not doing shit. Like I'm just gonna lock you up." Like he's the only guy that I've seen do that. And we always think it's like, well, the only guys who can shut down Brunson are going to be like wings, you know, guys who are like 6'7" or, you know, whatever. But VanVleet is a problem, just like terms of on ball defense with smaller guards. So, but yeah, that aside, the Milwaukee doesn't have a guy like that. You know, maybe Crowder could, but yeah, I don't know. They're going to have a tough time guarding Brunson. I agree with you on that.